Okay, so when speaking about consequential theories, as we discussed, they basically focus on the consequences of your decisions. So when I'm trying to build, and try to remember, we're going to build an ethical means a code of law personal for the person, a moral, which generally means for the group that the person belongs to, and then finally we're going to build law, which is for the larger group, and an established law and a coding for it. So to go from ethics to law, there is an element of application to a larger group, which means there needs to be no contradictions, there needs to be no problems, no gaps in the logic. So when you're dealing with consequential theories, you're looking at three main kind of categories. You've got utilitarianism, which is Bentham and Mill. You've got something along the lines of Niccolo Machiavelli, which is the end justifies the mean, which is usually very prominent with parents, administration, governments, when they want to do something that might necessarily be ethically acceptable, but they will tell you that the end will always justify how we did this. And finally, religious-based ethics. So going to the first, which is the most established and used when speaking about consequential theories, that's utilitarianism. So Bentham and Mill came up with this theory, which says that whatever derives the greatest amount of pleasure for the largest amount of people. And by pleasure we mean happiness, joy, overall well-being, not necessarily something physical or something intimate. But they added, and this is where the theory gets a little bit more complicated, they said that yes, it is the maximum amount of good for the maximum amount of people, but it cannot have any pain or bad for any one specific person. So it has two stipulations. We derive a law by looking at how it can maximally create good for the largest group of people. And then we look also that it cannot create any harm or anything bad for any group of people. So given those stipulations, then yes, we can function with it. That's how you derive the law under utilitarianism. And justifies the mean, Machiavelli. I think you've all heard this to some extent when you speak to your parents and you ask them, why are you doing this? And they tell you it's for your own good in the future. Or you hear this from governments, you hear this from administration in any company you work in or any educational institute. You will generally hear a variation of this, which is, yes, what we're doing might not be strictly ethical right now, or might not necessarily follow the laws, or you might not think it fair, but we're doing this for your own good. We're doing this so that the end result would be a better thing. It's a very dangerous kind of slope ethically to work with, because it basically pre-justifies anything. So you can actually pass any law you want or do anything you want, saying that the overall result in the long run will be for the good of people. It also means that you are capable to some extent of actually predicting what the future is. While we have a logical ability to estimate what would happen, but we can't really predict the future. And that lack of predicting the future is the problem with all consequential theories. That how do you take a decision based on the consequences when the consequences is something in the future and not necessarily something that you will have control over? So that's one of its biggest weaknesses. The strength of consequential theories is they're more practical and applied and pragmatic. They have to do with everyday life. They're more realistic when we're trying to function. They don't require a kind of ethical or philosophical level which is not applied in the real world. They're simply now hands-on. The last type of category, which you will see in our laws in all countries and you'll see in our society, is one version or another of a religious ethic. The concept of heaven and hell, the afterlife, punishment, gods, meaning, the kind of the meaning of life, the overall umbrella, the higher power telling you what is good for you and what isn't. That's the religious-based ethics, and they're all consequential in the sense that you don't follow religious ethics strictly speaking because that's what's good, but because what is promised for you later. So it is the consequences, how the universe or the god or the gods might actually retaliate or praise or compliment your decisions. So this future prediction, this future kind of reward or punishment is the consequence of your current actions. Religious ethics, of course, is the easiest to create in the sense that you have a religion, you have a God, so the law is indisputable. It comes from above and it comes from top down. So all we have to do is obey. Problem, of course, with religious ethics is which religion, which God or gods, and what if you don't believe? How can you apply this to a society that is polytheistic or has more than one religious doctrine or more than one religious belief? We have hundreds, if not thousands, of practiced religions right now. All of them do not necessarily agree on all the ethical standards within or all the laws, and they don't agree on the punishment and the reward. So how can I unify this? That's the biggest problem.